Hear me.
Вот скажи мне, американец, в чем сила?
А вы что, собираетесь на ней жениться?
Да.
Ух, красота-то какая, лепота.
Таможня дает добро.
И вообще не называй меня, пожалуйста, Вероникой. Кто я? Вот кто я?
Отныне русской земле единый быть.
Don't torture me, I can't live without him.
Hi, my name's Ali, and this is the Russophiles Unite podcast, where we watch Russian films and films with a Russian connection. As always, I'm joined by a guest, and today, my guest is Adam. Hi, Adam. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Ali. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great for you to be on the show, although I'm kind of conscious that this is sort of the audio equivalent of me going and standing next to Chris Hemsworth. So I'm hoping people aren't going to, make too many unfavourable comparisons.
The audio equivalent of Chris Hemsworth. Wow.
I guess I'm saying you have, if there is such a thing as a handsome voice, that's... You're a possessor of such, but...
Thank you. Well, I was thinking the same thing, to be honest. I was thinking more Liam Hemsworth, so...
Oh, right.
This is quite the paradox.
Indeed.
We're almost like twins. Thank you for having me, though.
Yeah, it's great. It's great you're on. So, could you tell us a little bit about you and sort of what you get up to?
Okay. Well, I'm the host and narrator and producer and writer and everything else of The Secret History of Hollywood and Attaboy Clarence podcasts, which focus mainly on the golden age of Hollywood.
Yeah, I was introduced to your show by you doing a guest slot on APOC Radio with Malcolm Nygaard, who listeners to this show may remember from the Sherlock Holmes episode, Soviet Sherlock. And yeah, you were a guest and a villain at one point, and kind of doing a sort of dastardly, Basil Rathbone, but evil, like in Robin Hood and his Merry Men type of thing.
Yeah, that's quite an experience, yeah. Oh my goodness me, I've forgotten all about that, but yeah. Sorry, hi Malcolm, how are you?
Hello, Malcolm. or Privyet, hi, as we say in Russian. Yeah, so obviously the interest in classic cinema is something you share with all of us, but for, I guess, the less film buffish, more just general Russia interest people, when you say the golden era of Hollywood or Hollywood's golden age, what are we really talking about?
I think we're probably talking about the silence to the end of the production code era. So in terms of years, you're probably looking at the early 1910s to the early 1960s.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where I think the ending is kind of a little bit fuzzy. I mean, yeah, you mentioned the production code, but yeah. So that's kind of why we've gone for the particular film that we've chosen today. But before we get on to that, your latest series, which by the time this episode goes out, I think you probably will have wrapped up based on, how long he has left to...
Wow. Is this episode going out in 2022, is it? Oh, okay.
Well... Hope not.
Wow. This is a long game, isn't it? Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, your current series is about the horror producer. I don't want to pigeonhole him because he seemed to have been very much a man of many talents.
He's definitely unpigeonholable, I think.
Yeah. Val Lewton, who I hadn't really heard of prior to listening to your podcast, but he sounds just fascinating. But that wasn't his birth name. His birth name was the rather more Russian sounding, at least in terms of his first name, Vladimir Leventon. So he was actually born in
Yalta.
Odessa, which was Yalta. Right,
Yalta,
sorry.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. Why,
No, you're welcome. It's fine, Karen.
yeah, why did I think he was from? Maybe his family had some connections with Odessa, but anyway.
His mother studied in Odessa. Yeah.
Gotcha. Right. So, yeah, obviously Yalta in Crimea, which, moving swiftly on.
Find another connection. Go for it.
Indeed. Yeah.
No, my latest series is about Val Luton, and he was born Vladimir Leventon, and very much part of the Eastern Europe contingent, so we say, yeah.
Yes, and his aunt was... You portray her with a very pronounced Russian accent.
You could say that, yeah. That's basically an impression of my grandmother, who's from Latvia. But yeah, his aunt was Alla Nazimova, who was a very, very famous Russian actress, who made the move from silent to sound cinema in Hollywood and carved quite a trail. Yes, in terms of performance and, shall we say, personal life. Her sexuality was something of a phenomenon in Hollywood too. So
Yeah, it sounds like that was sort of like not known by the general public because there would have been a scandal, but
that's correct. Yeah,
but kind of known about in the more sort of showbiz circles.
I mean, the interesting thing about 20s and 30s Hollywood lesbian was that they referred to their group, shall we say, as the sewing circle, and that was a term coined by Miss Alla Nazimova, and which was also adopted by other famous partakers such as Marlene Dietrich and Greta Garbo. So, but Alla Nazimova was quite a trailblazer. She also, unfortunately, felt the need to enter into what is now referred to as a lavender marriage with a husband that she did not love, but a marriage of convenience, so that she could keep the facade up, and keep it up. She did until later in life, where she just thought, what the hell? I don't care who knows anymore.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, often people do get to a certain vintage where they just go, I'll just do my own thing.
Yeah, I don't care if you ignore me in the street anymore. Yeah,
yeah.
Which is how it should be.
Yeah, it's never great to be too dependent on what everyone else thinks.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah. So the film we're watching today is very much towards the end of the golden age of Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an American/Italian take on, kind of the daddy of like Russian novels.
Yeah, you could say the daddy. Yeah.
I mean, I think even technically some people don't really count it as a novel. They say it's kind of almost like its own genre, but
it's like the background to every novel of the 20th century, isn't it? It's like the house where every novel lives. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. Especially this is way above my pay grade. I'm like a history grad, so literature is something I kind of dabble in, but my understanding of it is in terms of like the more realist tradition. It's kind of like, if people compare you with Tolstoy, that's good going.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of War and Peace, because I don't think we've actually specifically said which one it is, but you probably guessed already. Yeah, if you say name a famous Russian work of literature and a famous Russian author, the chances are people are going to say War and Peace or Anna Karenina by Lev Tolstoy. They might mention Dostoevsky and Crime and Punishment if they're...
That's the one I always get mixed up with, I must be honest. It's Crime and Punishment, War and Peace, Tolstoy, Dostoevsky.
Yeah, I mean, beardy, dead white dudes from Russia,
Have you heard of The Master and Margarita?
Yes, yeah, that's... its name escapes me momentarily. Bulgakov, Mikhail
Bulgakov,
say Bulgakov,
yeah.
because I want to say it's Mikhail. Yeah. Yes, I've read that. That is quite a trip.
Definitely. Definitely inspires certain feelings within me, I must be honest. Crazy book.
Yeah, I have to say, based on your turn in Malcolm's episode. I can see. I hope you won't take this the wrong way, but I can see you doing a turn as Voland.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm either evil or benevolent. There's no in between, I think. It's the voice.
Lovely. Yeah, so, I mean, obviously, yeah, you'd heard of the thing. And if you'll indulge me a second, I first heard of War and Peace, of all places, from Snoopy cartoons, Charles Schulz, because there's this one sequence where Snoopy, for whatever reason, in his wisdom, decides that he's going to read War and Peace one word per day.
Okay. How many words are there in War and Peace?
Oh, goodness knows. I mean, in terms... I could tell you, like, pages. Now, the first copy I tried to read was 1,000 pages, and that was just a mess, because you'd need basically a microscope not to give yourself a permanent migraine. So... really, I'd say 1,500 pages is going to be like a comfortable print size to actually be able to read the thing on the bus, which is how I read it, like, oh gosh, like probably getting on for 15 years ago. So I have actually read it, but yeah, it's hazy memories.
It is basically 3 phone books back to back, isn't it?
Kind of.
It terrifies me to think about reading a book that thick.
The thing about it, I mean, I'm not very good at making time for books now, which is awful. I think partly because I don't have long commutes, or at least not long commutes where I'm stationary, so I just listen to podcasts all the time because I'm walking.
And partly because you're a shameful human being for not reading a book, which is what I hear a lot on social media.
That's true. We should both be thoroughly ashamed. I should probably be, like, triple, quadruply ashamed, as I actually work in my day job for a book distribution company. So I am a dishonor to my company.
You're
they'll
an abomination.
They'll probably listen to this and fire me. Yeah, it'll be awful. I have lots of books in my house that I kind of absorb them somehow.
Mm-hmm. That pornography does not count, Alistair, I'm afraid.
Shameful allegations.
You're Russian. It's the Russian influence, I'm afraid.
Not sure how the Russians would feel about that.
I'm sorry, you were saying.
I have no idea what I was saying.
We should read more.
We should read more. Reading is a very beneficial activity. And I was going to say, though, with at least my recollection, because it is a long time ago, the nice thing about reading War and Peace was that chapters were quite short. And that's,
So what were there, 5 million chapters?
Kind of. But that's nice in the sense that it was kind of bite-sized. You kind of like... If you were reading it before bed, say, you weren't kind of like, now, am I going to conk out before I get to a good stopping place? Because you would, it'd be like a couple of pages. It'd be like a little scene or a little vignette. And they sometimes would be connected, but they'd be kind of broken up. So
I like
kind
that.
of like...
I like short chapters, I must be honest.
Yeah, you won't like Dostoevsky, because that guy, great writer, but likes to kind of, dunk you into the chapter for a long time and kind of swish you around for quite some time to kind of like, absorb the full levels of misery. I'm sure, like, serious Russian literature fans are going to hate me for, like, just caricaturing Dostoevsky, because there is more going on than that, and I'm just perpetuating horrible stereotypes. But, but
it's
been a long day. I'm talking in sweeping generalizations.
Well, you are Liam Hemsworth, so...
Yes, yeah.
You're married to Miley Cyrus, so you must talk in generalizations.
Right. So yeah... Going back to the cinema, the nice thing about film adaptations is they're a heck of a lot more accessible.
Yeah, and they take out all the junk and generally boil the plot down to a manageable size. Even though I have to say, I've never ever read the book War and Peace, and it terrifies me to think of reading a book that long. But even so, when I saw the running time of this film, I still thought, oh gosh, 4 times as long as I usually like a film to be. But saying that, I haven't watched it yet, and I'm looking forward to digging in.
Excellent. It could be worse. The Soviet adaptation from about 10 years after this one is basically double the length, because they were like, we want to do a nice, faithful adaptation, so we need more time because it's a long book. So,
have you seen the BBC recent one?
I did. Yeah, that was like, was it 6 1-hour episodes?
Yeah. Did you watch it all?
I did. I quite liked it.
I've heard nothing but good things about it, but I haven't seen it myself.
Yeah, I mean, I would qualified recommendation. I mean, I think what it suffered for me from comparison to another BBC version. I mean, there's another TV version from the 70s with Anthony Hopkins, which I haven't seen, but 4 or 5 years ago, they did a radio version. It's pretty all-star cast, and it was in 10 one-hour episodes, so it was long.
Wow.
But, it's audiobook, so, you can do more activities and listen,
Audio is better.
Yeah, of course, we are bound to say this. So, don't take our word for it, listeners. But it has Patterson Joseph as Pierre, who's one of the main characters, and magnificently, it has the late John Hurt, who is extremely brilliantly cantankerous. So I think, Jim Broadbent is great, but seeing him do that character after I'd heard John Hurt do it, it was kind of like, yeah, this is fine. He's, he's Jim Broadbent. He's great. He's just too avuncular to be this guy, especially because my conception of this guy is grouchy John Hurt, grouch. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, never be in a part that John Hurt has done, especially recently.
Well, you could say
that's
that.
going to be a problem that fewer people are going to have. Apparently.
I guess. Yeah, unless they want me to play the Elephant Man, which is entirely possible, because although my voice is Chris Hemsworth, the face certainly is not.
I'm sure you're shortchanging yourself.
Oh, yes, yeah.
But yeah, so I wanted you to do this one partly because of the golden age of Hollywood. It's got a lot of big stars in it, particularly Audrey Hepburn.
Yes, Miss Audrey.
Who you have done a whole series on.
I have, yes. 15 parts it was, and tells the early life of Miss Hepburn.
Yeah, I imagine we'll get into this a bit more in part 2 when we've actually watched the thing, but suffice it to say, knowing what happens in this film, I can't think of too many examples of somebody's actual life preparing them to play that particular role and go through those particular circumstances nearly as well. If you don't know of what I speak, check out Adam's podcast.
Thank you. Available on Audible exclusively. Speaking as someone who hasn't actually experienced the story of War and Peace yet, I can't tell you how closely it mirrors Audrey's life, but Audrey certainly had a very, very strange upbringing against the backdrop of World War II. And it's a story that many people don't realise happened, because many people just think of Audrey Hepburn as a style icon or a beauty icon or even an acting icon, that they don't realise that the life before she became a star was incredibly tough.
Grueling.
Yeah. She was abandoned by her father, brought up by her mother, who was a Dutch baroness, shuttled from country to country, and then found herself squarely in the middle of the war, where she aided in the Dutch resistance, where she almost starved to death, almost died from edema, saw her dreams and her ambitions of being a ballet dancer go up in smoke. And
not least because of the deprivations of the war. She just
almost starved to death by the Germans, and knowing a lot about the Eastern Front and just how hell on earth that was, I'd kind of underrated just how bad things were in the occupation in
in the Netherlands, because it seems like the Nazis were just like, so we're in your country, this stuff that you have, we're going to need it, and we're not going to pay for it, so...
They were so unprepared.
Like it, here are these guns.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was take it or die. They were so unprepared for war, they were, entirely convinced that they would remain neutral as they had done in World War One, and act as sort of time. Yeah, exactly. We're going to go between this front, and we will help you both rebuild after the war. Didn't reckon on the fact that Germany would just say, "Screw it, we want to take your country and use it as a base of operations," and did awful things to the residents of the Netherlands. And Audrey was unfortunately caught up in it all. Yeah,
I mean, she lost her uncle, as her uncle was in the resistance.
Yeah. Poor Uncle Otto.
They just put him up against a wall and
shot him. Yeah, her brothers were taken one by one. Her father was actually a fascist sympathizer and was incarcerated on the Isle of Wight. Her mother began as a fascist sympathizer, didn't realise the scope of what would actually become the Nazi Party, and later recanted, obviously, as any sane person would. A crazy upbringing, and lived almost 7 or 8 lifetimes before she was even 15 years old. Watched those she loved murdered in front of her eyes, and was almost killed herself many, many times. A crazy upbringing, and yet, came through it all, survived, and went on to become perhaps Hollywood's most iconic star. So,
yeah, I mean, in terms of the cast of this film, there are some other big names, especially at the time. I mean, Henry Fonda, most people will have seen at some point 12 Angry Men, and Anita Eggberg, of course. To my shame, I haven't seen La Dolce Vita, but it is one of the ones that you're definitely supposed to see if you're, any kind of film buff.
Yeah, I'm firmly on your boat with that. I've not seen it either, but it's one of those films that, is constantly in the top 5 of many critics' lists. But I must admit, when I, looked at the cast list of this film and saw her face, I thought, wow, very striking. And then realised it was Anita Eggberg. So, we'll investigate further.
And yet, I, until quite recently, did not know that this film existed. This was one I kind of stumbled across as I was just sort of researching stuff that I could cover, which makes me think, considering it's got Audrey in it, maybe it's not that good.
Well, let's see, shall we?
Yes. So we should probably watch the film. Now, before we do, we always like to say a little bit of Russian, because, apparently I like torturing my guests after they've kindly appeared on my show.
So nice of you.
And the word that we say is a word that essentially means off we go, or we're off. And it's kind of significant in Russian/Soviet history, as it's the word that Yuri Gagarin said when he was blasting off to become the first man in space. But you can use it all the time if you're just, going somewhere in a car.
I will, yeah.
Yes, off we go. So the word is поехали.
Поехали.
All right, so 3, 2, 1.
Поехали.
And welcome back. It's your new favourite Hemsworthian vocal duo. We've just watched War and Peace, directed by King Vidor from 1956. And before we get into letting you know what we thought about it, it's over to Adam for a plot summary. Now, disclaimer, there will be spoilers, so if you don't want to know what happens and you haven't seen the film. Also, an apology, I feel, Adam, I'm sorry. You'll probably take me for some kind of ruthless sadist for giving you this task, but...
Well, I think I might surprise you because I've done a very basic, very brief idea of what the film is about instead of a complete summary.
A thumbnail sketch is ideal because there's, as I'm sure we'll cover, there is a lot of plot.
If you want me to tell you everything that happens in War and Peace, we're going to need longer than we've got.
Please do not.
Okay.
All right, so with that out of the way, over to you, Adam. Thank you.
Well, War and Peace tells the tale of two families, the Rostovs and the Bolkovskis, or Bolkonskis, sorry, as they traverse their way through Russian life during Napoleon's invasion of 1812 and the subsequent changes to their society as a result. It's basically a big Russian soap opera.
Excellent. That is a excellent thumbnail sketch. Thank you.
And I realize that the book it centers on 5 families, but the film really centers on 2, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, even in the book, I'd say there are 2 main families, and then kind of a zillion others that kind of intersect, and then even more supporting characters. So yes, there's an awful lot going on. So, what did you think of it?
Okay. I'm going to come straight out and say, I mean, this is a book that I'm probably never going to read because A, I don't ever have enough time, and B, the size of it just terrifies me. I mean, this is like, if it was a house brick, it would be, big enough to be... I don't know, this is a ridiculous analogy, but...
You could wrap several lengthy notes around it if you were planning to throw it through a window.
Exactly. I mean, this is crazy size for a book. So I must admit, I came to the film slightly trepidatious because the film itself is like 3 hours, 15 minutes, 3 hours, 20 minutes.
Yeah, 3 hours and change.
My attention span for any movie is not very long, which is why I tend to like the old B movies that are like 65 minutes long. So I came into this thinking, oh, this is just really not something I'm going to enjoy. I realise the irony of that because I make the longest podcasts on the planet.
I was gonna say, I mean...
Please do point out the irony.
Yeah, Dan Carlin probably could give you a run for your money, but...
When he gets the 9.5 hours for one show, then maybe. At the moment, he's like my commercial break. So I get the irony of me saying that. I totally
Okay, I'm glad you pointed that out.
Yeah. I really struggled with this film. Because I watched it, and for the first 45 minutes to 50 minutes, I was thinking, oh my God. I'm not familiar with this story at all. So I watched it and thought, when is something going to happen? All these people are doing, they're just, they're standing in a room, making pleasantries to each other. And then we're seeing a different room with other people making pleasantries to each other. And then we see a father talk to his son. I was thinking, oh my God, when is something going to happen? And as a result... It's taken me 3 weeks to watch this movie because I watched the first 50 minutes and thought, well, I'll get back to it when, it's time to record. And last night, I sat there, 10 p.m., thinking, I've got 2.5 hours to watch. And well, let's just do it. And I have to say, if you divided this film up into 3 acts, the first 50 minutes where they're just introducing all the characters is incredibly boring. The second act, I'm sure the book is more exciting, but this film, as it's made, terribly, terribly dull. The second act, I have to say, when Audrey's character, Natasha Rostova, meets Prince Andrei, that really kicked it up a gear for me, and I really, really found myself suddenly interested and suddenly drawn into the story because there was something to centre it around. It just seemed like so much disparate... element, so many disparate characters just doing nothing, not really interacting in a way that I found appealing, I guess. Just too many pieces floating around in the ether. But once you have a love story to kind of centre it around, once you have that, I mean, we can talk about Audrey's story in a moment, but... Yeah,
well, and she's so magnetic.
Unbelievable in this film. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Roman Holiday. I think that's her best film. Then, even Sabrina, which is a very, very weak film... She is incredible in it because she's so magnetic. And as you say, in this film, she is probably 90% of why this film worked for me. Even more than that, probably 95%. Because she is
the second 2/3.
Yeah, she's so unbelievably beautiful, for one. Secondly, she seems to be the only naturalistic performer in the entire film. And you are looking at a cast of thousands, literally thousands of people. She looks like she's having fun. She seems young and exuberant. She is, she's as jubilant as she is in all of those films. Roman Holiday. She is as magnetic to the eye as she ever was. And I've never seen this film before. I have to say, when she was not on screen, it dies. when she's on screen, it just comes to life straight away. And thankfully, from the 50-minute mark to about the 2.5-hour mark, she's rarely off the screen. But she really does bring this film to life. Now, I've read analysis of the book, and they say that the character is kind of similar, although she starts off much younger, I think, in the book. She starts off at 13.
She does, yeah.
I mean, if Audrey's supposed to be playing a 13-year-old, that's kind of failed. But
yeah, well, and it's good that she's not, because some of the stuff that happens early on would be super weird and awful.
Right, okay. So I have to say, when she meets Prince
in the
Andrei,
film version, I mean, there's much more like flirtatiousness, and it's
right, okay,
or like two-way flirtatiousness in this than there is, at least as far as I recall, in the book.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
You're a good man for reading that.
It's a long time ago. It's almost half my lifetime at this point.
So you just finished it, did you? but anyway,
I think it took me about 8 months, and that was like getting through a fair amount every day. I don't know how I don't think I would manage it now.
I feel incredibly bad saying this, but I think as a book, this probably works incredibly well, because I'm sure as the author, has the chance to, float above the action, as it were, and sort of enter the heads of characters and describe what's going on over here. I'm sure that's what happens. But I think as a film, if you're going to sit someone down from start to finish and tell this story, I think it's too long. And I think it's too much. I mean, they've obviously truncated it heavily to get it down to 3 hours, 20 minutes. But I think they could have done more to shorten it. I think if they concentrated solely on the Audrey stuff and started it later than they did, and I don't know, it took 6 people to write this film.
And that kind of shows, I think.
It does. Yeah. It's so uneven in tone. The love story at the centre is brilliant. The bit where she meets, I forget his name now, the other officer who sweeps her off her feet, and then turns out he's married. Yes, correct. That bit's brilliant, because you're genuinely wondering, oh my God, she's not going to leave Andre for this guy, is she? And she does. All that's really, really intriguing. Henry Fonda's character, Pierre, I don't think is in it enough. I'm sure he's a massive character in the book, and I know people who've watched the miniseries, and they say he's a much bigger character in that. And she ends up with him, but he's missing for so much of the film that you kind of, it just doesn't feel right when she gets with him at the end. He gets it like the last 45 minutes of the film is all him.
Yeah.
And the first half an hour or so is all him. But throughout the rest of it, he's kind of just the supporting character. I think it's a very handsome film to watch. I think it's huge. I mean, I feel like I've seen every inch of Russia. And there are certain scenes in it that blew me away. I've never seen anything like it on film. You watch films these days and you see things that are like it, but they're all computer generated.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's a scene in this where Henry Fonda has a duel in the morning sun, and it's one of those,
a lovely one. Yes,
it's just the most beautifully staged scene I've seen for so long. I mean, the bit where he's going to look for the war and he comes on the hillside and he looks out across the hills and he sees 2 armies marching towards each other,
and they're marching in those blocks like they did back then, and you're just seeing like these little squares moving around, and you're like,
these are real people, in the distance, being coordinated by a director who was also coordinating Henry Fonda in the foreshot. In the distance, he's got 2 armies of people marching towards, and that is incredible. The bit where the French soldiers are leaving towards the end and the guns start firing on them. I mean, the sheer amount of people and the sheer spectacle of this film is incredible. And Audrey is incredible but it's just missing the adhesive. I think it's just yeah. I mean, I enjoyed it. I have to say, didn't think I was going to, and I really had to fight to get through it. But from about halfway in, I thought this is where it should have started almost. There's loads to enjoy. There's loads I didn't like. For me, if I had to rate out of 10 or something, it would be 7. But 5 of those are Audrey, and 2 of those are the grandeur of the thing. Definitely not my favourite movie experience ever, I have to say. But as I say, you kind of need to see it anyway because it's just such an experience for the eye.
Yeah, I think my views are very, very similar to yours. I mean, it was knowing the story, admittedly, from other adaptations rather than the book. As I say, the book is a distant memory. I was just thinking, if you're coming into this fresh, how the hell are you going to know what's going on? Because it's kind of like, as you say, a couple of people coming into the room and going, hello, it's nice to see you. Yes, right, okay, over here now. And
they go riding. All of a sudden, you see a character from 10 minutes before tipping his hat, and they're standing at a window. They're talking about, dinner or something. I'm just thinking, what is the point of this? What's happening? It's not even introducing these characters, but I have no idea of these characters' personalities or anything. It's only when the love story starts that you start to get a sense of what they're about. Kind of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like they rattle off dialogue, change scenes, new people, or maybe some of the same people rattling off dialogue. And yeah, I mean, I haven't seen that. Well, I think the only other Henry Fonda thing I've seen is 12 Angry Men. Again, a long time ago. I seem to remember him being good in that. But in this, I kind of could not stand him.
He is bloody awful in this film. I have to say, I'm more familiar with Henry Fonda's work, but he is so miscast in this film. It's unbelievable. I mean, you have Audrey Hepburn with her, French/Dutch/English accent. You have continental actors in this thing. Kuragin, Italian, wasn't he? Vittorio?
Gassman, yeah.
Yeah. But
the Gassman cometh, sorry.
Nice bottom reference. But I mean, you have all these accents in there, and then you have Yankee Henry Fonda, who does nothing to hide his heritage in this film at all. He's so unbelievably miscast, and he looks like her granddad as well. It's just weird. Why is he in this film? I know they probably wanted a big name or something. But...
Yeah, I think that's probably what it is. And again, just knowing from the book, it's terrible casting because he's too damn handsome. In the book, he's this overweight, awkward, I mean, very clever, but kind of socially not great, says stupid stuff. Like the beginning, the whole thing about him going, I actually quite admire Napoleon. I should be doing an American accent, but my wife would murder me, so... In the book and in other adaptations, he does that in a ball, and he basically, embarrasses himself in front of polite society, and they're all like, what an idiot is this Pierre? And people only start to like him when he inherits all the money, and then everyone's fawning to get into his affections, but partly because he's miscast as this really handsome, strutting, sure of himself, because I mean Pierre in the book is kind of confident in a sort of unself-aware kind of way that people often are when they're teenagers, but you can't imagine him having any problem in society because he's, like I say, conventionally handsome, conventionally confident. He'd get on fine, whereas that's not really what the character is in the book.
If that was the point of Henry Fonda's character, I just didn't pick up on that at all, that he was supposed to be socially awkward or anything. Because as you say, he begins the film by he's leant on a windowsill watching the armies marching past, and Audrey Hepburn's in the next window, and they're kind of winking at each other, and he walks into the room all confident and sort of, gives her a nudge with his elbow and off he goes, kind of thing. There's no sense at all that he's in any way awkward or socially inept at all. So, yeah.
This film totally butchers the passage of years because
Was there passage of years?
Yeah, there's supposed to be. Yeah, because there's a bit at the beginning that that Carrie and I were kind of like, this is almost like Pathé newsreel type footage at the beginning, which makes sense from the time period. But yeah, the initial battle that Prince Andrei is wounded in, that's the Battle of Austerlitz, I want to say, which... failing as a history fan here, but I want to say is 1806, 1807, somewhere in there. Okay. And then you jump forward to the renewal of hostilities and the actual invasion of Russia, because the initial fighting, it's the Russian army, because they're allied with Austria, going and helping them. And that's, yeah, all this stuff is not particularly well conveyed. And like you say about it needing more pruning, yeah, totally concur. If you're going to try and do this thing in like 3.5-ish, just over 3 hours, like you say, I don't think it's really something that should be attempted. But
that's the thing.
If you're going to do it,
exactly. If you're going to do a movie, don't do a 3.5-hour, 4-hour movie. Yeah. You should just do it shouldn't have been a movie if they were going to. Yeah. It's hard because War and Peace has been turned into a TV miniseries not that long ago, and received massive critical acclaim. I know people that have watched it and said it's absolutely stunning and amazing and brilliant and really engrossing. But they kept more of the book and just turned it into a bigger series. I just think they rush the beginning. Well, they don't rush the beginning. They meander over the beginning when they should have tightened it up.
But I think you're actually right. I think they both rush and meander in the sense that each scene is rushing through, but that means that the individual scenes, like, there's hardly any meaning. Like the relationship between Prince Andrei and his very gruff father, which again I probably mentioned it in the intro part. But once you've heard John Hurt's version, it's like, sorry, everyone else is just going to suffer. I mean, even Jim Broadbent, as I've probably said, but he's hardly there. I mean, again, Carrie referred to the film as this major thing happened off screen, or as I like to call it, the BT Dubs "Your wife just died" version of War and Peace.
Yeah, so when Andrei's wife dies, you mean?
No, well, that's true, but no, actually, when Ellen, who is the Anita Eggberg character, when she dies, yes, she did, and the fact that I
didn't even get that. Yeah. She was such a focal. She was a bit dastardly, and she had such a big part to play. That's one of the problems I had with Andrei's father. Actually, he's set up to be this huge villain, and he tells his son, go off for a year, and Audrey calls round on him, and you get the feeling that they're setting him up. I mean, I don't know the story, so this is how I felt when I was watching it. I get the feeling they were setting him up to be a huge villain, and that even when Andrei came back, he was going to cause a problem. And then he just, by the way, and he died. But I prayed for him.
Sorry.
Like, what? It's just, seems such a, you're making a movie. You don't have to, I know they were very faithful to books back then. Like David O. Selznick, famously, all his dialogue came from the book. He wouldn't allow people to put their own dialogue in. And if that kind of thing happened in the book, then fine. But you're making a movie for the masses who were probably never going to read the book, and they should have said, this is not the book, this is a movie of the book. And they should have, if a character began in the beginning, they should have had their own arc, instead of just being chopped off halfway through.
Yeah. And if you can't do that, cut them out completely. Like a good example of a minor character, minor-ish. I mean, because there are some very minor people in the book. Because that's one of the fun things about, stereotyping, but Tolstoy and Dostoevsky is they're really fond of cramming lots of people in, which makes it quite realistic because, life's a complicated thing and lots of people come and go. Yeah. But yeah, like there's this one character, Denisov, who's introduced, and then later on, in the book version of the story, he is present for Petya, who's the youngest Rostov sibling. Denisov is there for his death, and he's really cut up by it because he feels personally responsible. But he's totally cut from that scene, and it's just Dolokhov who is there in the book. I I was, vainly thumbing through my copy of the book to try and find instance, which, was a fool's errand. But I did actually manage to find the bit where Petya dies, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's Denisov is the main guy, but yeah, Dolokhov is in the background, and yeah, it's kind of like, if you're gonna take Denisov out of that bit, just don't have him in the film at all. You don't really
because
need
he's
him.
just superfluous.
Yeah.
So frustrating film, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe more for you because you've read the book and you just think, why is that there and why is that there? But frustrating for me, having known nothing about the story. All I knew it was just an epic tale. The problem with it is that if I'm going to give 3.5 hours to it, I need it to be coherent, and it just wasn't coherent.
Yeah.
There was a great love story that took up the middle of the film. The last third of the film concentrated on Henry Fonda's character, who by 2.5 hours in I just didn't care about. And it was I think if they got the first hour right, then it would have been an incredible film. As it is, it's 2/3 of an incredible film. But I have to say, I mean, you probably know more about this than I do because you're a Russian expert. But
I would not characterize myself that way, but thank you. I'll take it.
Compared to me, you're definitely a Russian expert. But I thought the production design was off the scale. I mean, the rooms, even the cutlery on the table, the finery on the uniforms, just the whole look of the film. It didn't feel like a film at times. It felt like they'd taken actors and travelled through time. It just looked incredible. I mean, every single one of those French soldiers marching off into the distance, and you can see miles of these people marching off into the distance. Every single one of those was in an authentic French uniform. This film must have cost a fortune to make.
Oh my goodness, yeah, phenomenally expensive. I'm so glad you didn't totally hate it.
I didn't hate it. I'm just disappointed in it slightly.
Yeah.
I think I've watched films that are this long before and loved them. I watched this one and I struggled because it was because of the start of the film. The first hour of this film is just, it's so hard to get a hold of. You watch it and you're admiring it, but you're not watching the film. You're looking at oh my god, look at the thing on the ceiling. Oh my god, look at the horses and what they were. You can't concentrate on the story because it's just so uninvolving. That's the problem with this film. I think if they got the first hour right, if they'd drawn you in properly, I think the rest of it would have worked incredibly well.
But again, it would be so hard to give the scenes the time and not be like, well, we're an hour and a half in and we're only a quarter of the way through the story. Damn, this should have been a mini-series, which, of course, for TV didn't happen then. Like, you can totally see why it's better suited to that format. And as I've mentioned, the radio drama I absolutely love, which is it's 10 one-hour episodes. I mean, obviously, it's no visuals because it's radio, and so that you're filling in the blanks with your mind, but the sound team does a fantastic job with that. That's probably of the, now 3 versions of this story that I've, obviously not counting the book, because, totally different medium, and it's the original item, so I think that should be kind of exempt from the
That's
comparison.
the Holy Bible, isn't it?
Well, I mean, actually, that's in terms of the radio adaptation, one of the things that's a little bit tricky and I found quite tedious with the book is that the action is interspersed with Tolstoy, sharing his various pet theories about history and how stuff works, and it's kind of like almost like mini essays, and that's quite dull.
That sounds a little indulgent.
It does. It does. Yeah, that's how I feel. I'm possibly a total Philistine for thinking that way. And yet, the radio version is quite clever because it manages to give some of those ideas. It puts them into the mouths of characters, but it does it in a way that if you don't know that they're doing that, you don't realise that that's what's going on, I don't think. I mean, I kind of knew what they were doing, so maybe I don't know, but they managed to incorporate those in a way that didn't feel horrendously shoehorned. I want to pick up on your point about the older Prince Bolkonsky who dies. the film setting him up as a villain. Again, it's kind of one of the things the film doesn't do very well. He's a very flawed character in other versions of the story, but it's definitely not as clear-cut as he's just a horrible person. There's more nuance going on. And again, you just lose that in the story.
I didn't get that from the film. All I thought was he's one of those one-dimensional evil fathers, because he just walks on the screen and says, "No, you can't do this. No, you can't. You're an idiot." Blah blah blah. And I think, oh, he's the film's villain then.
Yeah,
you know. But and then he just went.
Literally drops dead off screen. Yeah. I mean, it's probably getting into the minutiae, but are there any other performances besides Audrey that you liked?
I liked Anita Eggberg.
Yeah, she's very good in the time
very
she's
good.
there.
Yeah, and absolutely suited that role completely.
Yeah.
Her name
Definition.
escapes me. I do apologise, but
Ellen.
Yeah,
The
Pierre's
definition of a femme fatale.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought she was great. I have to say, Mel Ferreira, I'm not generally that impressed by him.
Yeah.
He's
I haven't
always
seen him in other things, to be honest.
No, he's one of those actors who just was there, you know, a good-looking guy, and obviously married to Audrey during this. But
well, he doesn't make it that far. He was betrothed.
No, in real life.
Oh no, I did not know that.
Oh yeah. He was her first husband, and they were married throughout the 50s. Yeah, they got married just after she made it big. So they did lots of things together. He went into directing eventually, and directed her in a few films, Green Mansions and things, with Anthony Perkins. A really talented guy, I think, as an actor, not the most magnetic presence. Very tall, very good looking.
Yeah,
and their son Sean carries on their legacy. I think it's hard to see past Audrey Hepburn in this film. I think she is unbelievable in this film. I'm not just saying that as a fan. I think if you hadn't ever seen an Audrey Hepburn film before, this film would make you want to investigate her more. She's just full of life, every time she smiles, the screen lights up. I don't know, how many films of hers have you seen?
Not a ton. I've seen Roman Holiday, which is just fantastic. I saw... Oh, it's the fashion musical one. Oh, no. I saw it just the other day. It's from
Funny
the 50s.
Face.
Funny Face, yes, that's the one. And I found that film to be quite annoying and flawed, but she was fantastic in it.
She didn't do the greatest films ever. I think she came out strong, and then she did sort of one every other film was a good one. But
yeah, My Fair Lady. It's been a while.
My Fair Lady, yeah.
It's pretty good. I mean, the ending not so great.
I think she definitely had a talent for being the best thing in the film. She's very, very good in this. The way she does seem childlike at the beginning. She's very exuberant, and you watch her and you just feel happy when you watch her, and you want her to be in love. I do think I don't know if it's the fault of the film or whether it's the way she's written in the book. When Andre goes off to war, and you're just thinking, oh no, I hope he makes it back. And then she meets what's his name again?
Kuragin,
sorry. Oh, sorry. I should have written these down, really. But when she meets him, you're thinking, oh, no, don't do that. No.
He's a complete and total arse.
Yes, he is an arse. Oh, come on. No, you've got Andre. Please wait for him, And she does it anyway. So you do kind of lose a bit of sympathy for her character.
Yeah, it is weird. That is a kind of like...
Yeah.
You can only put it down to her being teenage and naive, and she's like that in all other versions. So that one we can't really chalk up to this film.
Yeah, I can't blame on that. So that's a fault of the character. But the film spends so long, throwing her into Andre's arms, that when she meets him and the next scene they're kissing, you're like, oh, Christ's sake, that's just lazy. I think that's lazy plotting, to be honest. I think they could have stretched that part out or made him meet her earlier or something, just so there's a bit more, because it just seems like she just seems a bit foolish from doing that. And then she gets, reconciles with Andre, obviously, and he passes away, and then she almost falls into Henry Fonda's arms, and at the end walks off with him into the distance, and you just think, there's no...
It's totally unearned, like you said.
It's just a bit, and it's just not very well written, I don't think. The film, I think, if they'd set the Henry Fonda love story up a bit better at the beginning, I mean, you get the sense that he likes her, but you don't get the feeling that she feels anything but friendship for him. Perhaps if there'd been a bit more... I mean, wouldn't know how to do it. I'm not the greatest writer in the world. But, if they'd set that up a bit better, so that when she walks off with him in the end, you think, oh, well, he got her in the end. The way that I felt at the end of that was kind of like, she just ended up with him because there was no one else left.
Yeah. Well, they're all dead, so I guess I'm stuck with you.
Oh, you'll do. Fine. Come here. Specky boy. But,
and I mean, he, again, doesn't do himself any favours, because there's the whole scene with Platon, who's the peasant, who's very philosophical in a kind of rustic way. Again, an observation Carrie made while we were watching it. He falls behind and is in danger of being shot, and, again, plots...
Oh, when they're marching.
Does die.
Through the snow.
And,
right, okay.
At this point, we're supposed to believe that Pierre and Platon have developed a bit of a friendship, and that Pierre kind of looks up to this guy, even though he's, way further down in the social order. But he starts to lag behind, and Pierre's just like, meh.
See ya.
Yeah. Whereas,
Right, okay.
again, I don't remember the book well enough to know whether that's sort of what he does, and he just kind of goes, well, I have to survive, so, and plods on. But in this film, he kind of doesn't care, and yeah, in some ways, this whole film, it's very tempting to characterize as a bunch of posh rich folk going, oh, isn't our life difficult, when lots of other people have it way worse. Like, again, it happens in the book when Pierre's just wandering out around the battle, getting in everyone's way. You're just like, you idiot. I mean, I think...
Get out of the way. They're trying to shoot each other.
Yeah.
Mind you, I must say, I saw that part in the mini-series when that was on. Paul Dano stumbling around the battlefield. And I thought it was very well done. So I think this film is inherently flawed because of the writing. And I do think that perhaps in the hands of a single writer it might have been more coherent. But when you're writing in a group of 6, or, perhaps they didn't, perhaps they all wrote a section each, perhaps it just got lost in translation. And I think it's a real shame. But, I mean, King Vidor, who directed it, was one of the writers as well. So.
Okay, yeah, no, didn't realise that. You'd think with directorial input you'd have a bit more room to put your foot down and go, nope, this has got to go if we're going to do this, anything approaching properly.
Exactly. Well, even in continuity terms, or this character was with him earlier on, so he needs to be at this scene. Yeah. It just seems like every scene was not made up on the fly, because obviously it was planned out, but I just think in the hands of a single writer, this film might have been a bit more coherent.
Yeah, but again, credit is, as far as the absolutely spectacular visuals. I mean, you've mentioned.
I've never
already,
seen anything like it. It was incredible to watch. Yeah,
the pontoon sequence is amazing when the Russians are blowing up the bridge that the troops are trying to leave on.
Yeah,
I kind of want to mention the guy who plays Katuzov.
So do I.
What did you think of him? Yeah, because we haven't talked about him.
I don't remember who that is.
Okay, fair enough.
Sorry, my sarcasm didn't come across.
No, apparently not. My sarcasm detectors need turning up.
You'll have to remind me who that is. I do apologize.
Yeah. There's the name thing. He is the main Russian general.
Oh, right. Okay, the guy who at the end says, "Well done, everyone."
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah, well, I can tell you about the actor, Oskar Homolka. He made his name in Hitchcock film Sabotage.
Oh, okay, which I haven't seen.
Very, very good in that. That was based on Joseph Conrad's A Secret Agent.
Okay,
very good film. But anyway, yes, please do carry on.
Yeah, I mean, Carrie and I both thought that he was really going for kind of a Churchillian mode. I mean, both in terms of his physicality and very much his delivery is quite, we will fight them on the beaches, except with a slightly weird accent. Again, the accents are sort of all over the place. It's kind of almost like you have to decide, okay, the Russians are going to sound this way, or maybe even the Russian aristocrats are going to sound this way, the Russian lower classes are going to sound this way, and the French are going to sound different. But it is kind of like the director said, do you know what? Just do your own voices or whatever the hell you want. I don't really care. Which is a shame. It's like credit to him as far as how it looks, but again, consistency lacking. I mean, I guess they cared less about that sort of detail back then, or is that unfair?
What's that, sorry?
It feels like from my limited watching of films from that era, that sort of detail wasn't something that they figured audiences prioritized in the same way.
You mean accent work?
Accent work, yeah, that sort of stuff. Yeah.
I think if you were a baddie, you were, a European actor, basically, in those days. Oh, it's kind of the same now, but
a little bit.
The heroes are American.
Or Russian,
I mean, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oskar Homolka was Austrian, so I think he played a lot of spies and a lot of, a lot of nefarious people. But I actually liked his scenes. I must say, when he popped up, I was like, oh, it's Oskar Homolka. His scene where they're telling him about the peasants burning the villages so that the French invaders won't have any food, and he says, let them carry on, do it more even.
Yeah,
I thought that was a good scene.
Yeah, and they're like, no, we have to fight, and he's like, no, that won't work. You have to do it the way I know how. Yeah.
You have to make invasion hard for them, is it?
Yeah, you have to make them really wish they hadn't done this, because if it comes to a pitched battle, they are better than us, so we have to use the stuff that's in our favour. And that's, it's a really tough thing to do as a general, because everything is about morale and like, yeah, we can get them, we're the best, and he knows that actually isn't the right thing. So, and that's definitely something that comes through in the book, is that Tolstoy very much admires this guy, whilst kind of poking fun at his sort of elderly, kind of sluggish, falling asleep sort of ways. And that means everyone around him just thinks, oh, he's useless because, appearances can be deceiving, but he's actually quite shrewd.
Yeah.
I thought he was good once I kind of tuned my ear to his slightly odd accent. Again, I quite liked the chap who was playing Dolokhov. Helmut Dantine? I don't know how you pronounce his name. I guess he's German, so Dantine. I found he was quite menacing.
He's the guy that has the duel at the beginning, yeah?
He is,
with Henry Fonda. Yeah,
and
he's very good.
The first guy who, like before Pierre, tries to, repeat his feat and narrowly avoids dying, but he's the one who confidently drinks all that rum on the windowsill.
I get
and is just nerves of steel. Yeah, he isn't in it very much, but I thought he was really good.
He's very good, yeah.
Yeah.
There's quite a few British actors, like famous ones. John Mills is in this. I didn't realise that.
Yeah,
and
that was
and
a
Jeremy
name
Brett,
I
who played one of the Rostov brothers.
Yes, yeah. Again, in terms of cutting characters or drastically reducing their roles, in terms of other versions of the story, the big three I would say are Natasha, Pierre, and Andrei, but not far behind is Maria, Andrei's sister, and Nikolai. Those are big characters, but Maria and Nikolai. Sorry, in this film,
he's Sonia.
He's Nicholas.
He's Nicholas in this, isn't he?
Yes, that again. That kind of annoyed me that they anglicised all the names, sort of, but they still use Russian nicknames like Petya, which, I mean, calling him Pete would be a bit weird. But yeah, because Petya is Pyotr, which is the Peter. But yeah, it was again like, as a pedant, that annoyed me because it's. I mean, I can understand wanting them to seem less exotic in terms of the names, and it's the 50s and it's the Cold War, so we're going to tell this Russian story, but we'll make this feel as little Russian as we can. So yeah, it's a minor irritation compared to all the other stuff we've talked about, but again, a little bit of an odd decision. Yeah, this is quite a weird circular way of going around the conversation, but just going back to Audrey, I was wondering, watching this, would this have been quite a difficult experience for her to go through in terms of
our experiences in
exactly.
News.
I mean,
yeah, possibly.
I mean, her character doesn't go through anything as bad as what you do a brilliant job of telling it in your series. She went through. I was revisiting the very end of the war, where the immediate danger from the troops, the occupying Nazi forces are concerned. That danger's past, but just the ravages that
hunger and things. Yeah.
Hunger, yeah, it's just absolutely harrowing. But and just in terms of that side of things, and also being brought up with an aristocratic background in some ways, you think, how many actors have had life experience that would prepare them so well for a part? Exactly, I can't think of too many.
I mean, imagine she did draw on her own experiences for that. I know she turned down the role of Anne Frank many times because she felt that she couldn't possibly revisit that so vividly.
Yeah, because they were almost exactly the same age, weren't they?
Yes, they were the same age. Yeah, it was finding her diary that sort of brought her out of her post-war depression. I think she realised that Anne Frank wasn't going to get to see the world that she was going to get to see, so she should live every day as if it was her last.
Yeah,
and in terms of experiences, I mean, the war finished, I guess, 1945, so she was 11 years out of it. And I think Audrey Hepburn was definitely one of these people who saw each day as an opportunity and not just, another day between her current goal and her next goal. I think she really did live every day as if it was, special. So I'm sure that she wouldn't have dwelled too much on, her harrowing upbringing. And her personal life, I think, was in a very, very good place in 1956. Yeah. She was happily married, and she was very, very, very successful at the time, probably the biggest star in the world. So.
Well, that was the thing. Obviously, I knew she was in this, clearly. That was one of the main reasons that I decided to watch this film and to ask you to be on this episode. But what I hadn't realised was that she was top billing. That was only a detail that I because I sort of automatically assumed that because of the times that she would have been like second or third, because you just give top billing to a man because it's the 50s.
She came. I mean, her rise was incredibly fast, probably faster than anything you've seen
meteoric.
Before. Absolutely. She was in a play called Gigi on Broadway, which was, advertised as, no star is bigger than the part of Gigi. It's the big part. And within a week of her opening, her name was above the title. And
it's like, let's just see about that.
Exactly. Her first major film role, Roman Holiday, she won the Best Actress Oscar. And she was, she was so good in Roman Holiday that, you probably heard in there that Gregory Peck insisted that she was not going to get secondary credit. She was going to be, on the title of the film, even though the
did not know that, but good for him.
Yeah, he insisted. It's really funny because the director, William Wyler, noticed that Gregory Peck was very, very, sort of put out or, had lots on his mind, and he pulled him aside. And Gregory Peck was at the time breaking up from his wife, and he was about to marry his, or meet his second wife. And he said, "Is everything okay?" And he's like, "Bill, my contract states that I get top billing in this film." And
do you know what I did know this because you totally mentioned it in the series, and it's all like, this is very familiar now. Yes,
and he thought he was, he thought he was going to say one thing, but he was like, Audrey's doing too well in this film, and he's like, well, what do you want to do? Bump her down the cast list? Like, no, of course not. I want you to put her on the title screen with me. I don't care about what my contract says. She's just too good. And I think she had that effect on everyone. I mean, Jack Warner, notoriously one of the worst people in Hollywood. He saw her screen test and thought, we can't control this girl, but we're not going to let her go. He had an interest in her at the time. Everyone who saw her screen test, which was basically her just sat in front of a camera talking about her war experiences, just fell in love with her. She just had it. The people like that don't happen at all very often, but Audrey Hepburn has it. Every frame she's in, she's the most interesting thing in every frame of film that she is in. She's an incredible screen presence.
Yeah, I mean, if it was someone else in this film, it would instantly lose a lot of its watchability. Yeah, I can't think of anyone that I would think is as good casting. I think that's, I mean, you could continue to gush.
Yeah.
I mean, there's obviously it's a 3.5 hour, very flawed film, and there's potentially a lot more you could say. But yeah, I think that's probably where we should more or less leave the film. But the question I have is, does seeing this version, albeit with all the problems, does that make you want to seek out other better adaptations, or do you feel like, this is already enough time of my life invested for this story?
No, I would be interested. I mean, not yet. I don't think I want to hold your War and Peace. But I mean, if in a year's time the mini series that was on that everyone raves about was on, I think I would, if I had the time, watch that. Yeah. I don't think I want to see another feature film version. That doesn't appeal to me at all. Yeah,
because the big elephant in the room is the Soviet version from almost exactly 10 years after this. That is, I think, over twice as long.
Right, okay.
And it won the best foreign language picture that year. And in terms of spectacle, I haven't seen it yet because I'm kind of saving that one up.
Okay.
But it's said to be absolutely blow your socks off.
Okay.
And because it's so much longer, I'm presuming they do a better job of giving the characters room to breathe. But just imagine that day at the cinema. It must be completely exhausting, but that's probably the right response to War and Peace, to be honest.
Yeah. I think, like I say, I don't think I'd watch another feature film version, but I'd be interested to see a mini-series of it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And if you hadn't already picked up, listeners, I'm quite the fan of the BBC radio adaptation. Did I mention John Hurt's in it? I think I said that. Yeah, some guy. But yeah, if you've got long, I don't know, journeys on public transport ahead, that's so worth finding. It's brilliant, and it's not just John Hurt. Patterson Joseph is fantastic as Pierre. He really makes you feel a lot more sympathy and understanding with a character who, it can be kind of annoying, but aren't we all occasionally? Maybe.
I definitely am.
Well, yeah. My wife's not here at the moment, but yeah, if she were here, she'd go, yep, that's you.
Cool.
All right. So, thank you so much for joining me.
No, thank you. Thank you for taking me out of my comfort zone. It was quite fun.
Yeah, I was just watching the film. I was thinking, Adam probably totally hates my guts right now.
Not totally.
just
2/3.
Most of my guts. Yeah.
No, it was very good. I'm glad I saw it. Yeah, it's an Audrey Hepburn film I've never seen before, so yeah.
Yeah, which is always good, and as we have established, it's not a dud performance on her part.
It's a great performance. Very good.
So Adam, if listeners would like to check out your podcasts, where would they find those?
If I haven't done enough to alienate you already, then if you go to secrethistoryofhollywood.com or attaboyclarence.com, you can find everything there, or just search in iTunes for either one of those.
Awesome.
And I'm at Movie Histories on Twitter and at attaboyc on Twitter too.
Super. I also somebody with 2 Twitter handles. It's
it's very annoying.
Yeah. I find that hard to manage, and kind of think, I was doing things differently. But yeah, and specifically the Audrey series. Where would one find that?
That's only available through Audible at the moment. If you're a member, then you get a service called Audio Shows, which is free, and all of my back catalogue is available on Audio Shows. But Audrey Hepburn is only available through them. I've never released that on the podcast, so It's a 15-part series. So
Yeah,
buckle in.
Yes, and as we've probably established, I keep saying that phrase, it's not the easiest ride. It's dark times, but it's, I think it's really, knowing what a fantastic actor she was, it's interesting to have that backstory and the experience that formed the person that she was.
I think you're right, yeah.
Yeah, often I don't really care that much in terms of other actors. I just, in some ways, it's unhelpful to know background information.
It can destroy a few myths, can't it? Yeah.
It can do, yeah. But with her, it's like, okay, that makes so much more sense why she comes across as so strong and, so carpe diem in a positive way. Awesome. So, yes, as I say, definitely check those out. So, thanks everyone for listening, for making it through this epic with us. And
just think, if they start listening at the beginning of this, they'd just be at the end of the boring part of War and Peace now.
Yeah. So just listen to this and watch the videos. Just watch the talking heads and then take your headphones out. Yeah, absolutely.
Very true.
All right.
Sorry, I spoiled you.
No, that's fine. All right. So yeah, thanks again for listening, and das Vidania, folks.
Das Vidania.
So that's it for this episode, but before I go, I'd like to thank Sasha Ilukovic and the Highly Skilled Migrants for the use of their song Cold in our intro. You can find that song and the rest of their back catalogue on Bandcamp and Spotify. If you're enjoying the show, please consider supporting us by leaving a rating at Apple Podcasts or at podchaser.com. That second one, Podchaser, even lets you rate individual episodes, so if this episode particularly stood out to you, you can let other listeners know that you enjoyed it. Recommending the show on social media is hugely helpful as well. If you can spare a moment or two to do that, it would really make my day. Thank you very much. Speaking of social media, please find us and say hi on Facebook, Twitter or Instagram. You can also drop us a line at roosefilesunite@gmail.com. Thanks again for listening, take care of yourselves, and bye for now.